Hello everyone, my name's Ken and this is Lucy Poo over here. We're going to show you how I was able to improve the curb appeal of a historic 1909 farmhouse that has been remodeled. So stay tuned. Here we have a truly unattractive house. The house didn't start off this way, but over the years each homeowner made changes that now add up to a horror show. Thankfully, a new homeowner recently purchased this house, seeing its full potential. She planned to reverse the inappropriate changes and bring the house back to how it originally looked. This house is a Sears kit house from 1909. There is no evidence that the homeowner's house was a kit house, but this house was L-shaped and probably very similar to this Sears house. This house is L-shaped like the Sears house on the left, with the side gable here is on the right, although it's hidden by the addition. A lot of huge mistakes happened over the years. The homeowners outgrew their house, and instead of moving into a larger house, they added on in a very bad way, destroying the architecture and disfiguring it. Adding on to the front of the house does not work on most houses. The addition to the left, instead of being set back a foot or two, is flat with the front. The infill to the right is very bad, and a good architect would never do something like this. But we all know there are a lot of bad architects and contractors out there. The problem we had with reversing some of these changes is that the interior has been changed in such a way, with vaulted ceilings and such, that it prohibits removing the addition and altering the walls that the homeowner would like to do. So other problems are very bad windows, very narrow window casings, which is all the rage right now. Very thin window casings, which the result is making the windows look like they're just holes punched in the house. Plastic shutters, the wrong size, mounted incorrectly. A railing that is high that looks like a cage for animals. Not to mention the plastic siding, which covers up all the trim under the eaves. These are very easy fixes. So let me show you renderings of the changes I made to what I feel would be the best way to improve the curb appeal of this house and make it appear like this house is more of a 1909 farmhouse that is architecturally correct. The first step is to replace the plastic siding with wood and add more appropriate trim. Here we're starting off with a blank slate. New wood clapboard was added to the house. The trim plays an important role here. The best option would be to have each addition removed. The second best option would be to have the additions set back about 1 or 2 feet. This would give the main portion of the house a hierarchy and show the correct architecture of the house. However, we don't have those options to do that, so the vertical trim would be playing an important part, separating the original house from the additions. The trim is important for it outlines the design and shows structure and creates a feeling of balance. Another big problem you get from contractors is that a lot of them like to work on autopilot. They do the same thing for all the houses they work on. When installing vinyl siding, the easiest way to do it is to box everything in. And this is very evident for the eaves on the house here. The original house had open eaves, like you see here, but the contractor boxed them in, creating pork chop eaves. The contractor working with this homeowner said he's worked on houses for 25 years and no one has ever requested eaves other than pork chop eaves. Well, it's not that they requested them, it's that this is what the contractor does automatically, and most people don't even notice it or care. So homeowners are really brainwashed into seeing bad architecture everywhere and wouldn't notice the difference, but there's a huge difference, and this separates good from bad construction. This house should have angled soffits. When installing vinyl siding, this is the quickest, easiest way by boxing everything in. Remove all that tacky vinyl in the soffits and you should be good to go. Marianne Casado is the author of Get Your House Right. That is one of the best books to have. Read that and you will learn so much and will be shocked at the bad architecture out there. These particular images come from Fine Home Building Magazine online, February, March 2019. It's a real good article and it goes into more depth on creating angled soffits. This is how the open eaves should look. On the fascia board, this is the fascia board, there is a bed mold trim right under the roof. This is it right over here, okay? You should always have this trim on old houses, but you'll never see this on a new house. One thing to keep in mind is that new roofs are now installed with flashing that will cover this part of the trim and the fascia board. That flashing may need to be painted to match the trim color. Never let the flashing be noticeable in this area. You can find a blog article discussing this on my website, oldhouseguy.com. Over here, against the siding, this is a frieze board. This trim may still be hidden under the vinyl. I made it the width of the corner boards, but the frieze board, this can be wide or even double the width. It's rare that there would be two pieces of wood here, this frieze board, and the soffit here, at a right angle without a bed mold or cove molding trim. That's this piece over here. You need to have a piece of trim in the corner. This really adds up to a nice finished look. Everything you see that's white on this house is the trim. The trim really makes a huge difference and was really an important feature on the house. The trim and the details in the trim is something you don't see on houses today, but it's really important and it really gives a house character. Here we installed round Tuscan porch columns. These were very popular in the early 1900s. The Sears house, that we had used as an example before, had turned porch posts, and the homeowner preferred that style. What determined what style to use is the porch beam. This is the porch beam over here. Very important feature. The thickness of the beam is 7 to 8 inches. This width determines the type of support. The top of the support must match the width of the beam. So the top of a turned porch post is about 5 inches wide. That's too narrow, it will not match. A round column at the neck is wider than a porch post and can be sized to match the size of the beam. If the beam is 8 inches wide, then the neck of the column must also be the same size at that location. I have a blog article that goes into more detail on my website. If you're choosing a round column like this, there is no way you could improvise on the style. A round column must always go by the classical orders of architecture to do it right. So it must be followed, and a classic column would be tapered. So there's one way of doing it, and it's only the right way to do it. Here we added on a balustrade. A balustrade with square balusters is appropriate for this house. Notice the meaty handrail and footrail. There are also turned newel posts over here. These newel posts should be 5.5 inches wide. That's not something you're going to get at Home Depot. This is something that you have to have turned and custom made. But you have to do it right. It's important. That's the way it has to be. Here we have the old porch and the new porch to compare to. I can go into a lot of information on here, but I'm going to do it briefly because I have a lot of details and comparison pictures on my website, the porch page of my website, which goes into a lot of detail. So notice the skinny toothpick columns, the old one, and the nice thick ones here that are thick enough to appear like they could actually support the roof. Notice the height of the railing. A handrail must never be higher than the windowsill. Code is 36 inches, but an architecturally correct rail height is 25 to 26 inches. And again, this is explained on my website, what to do with code and how to design your railing. Notice the porch floor fascia board. That's right over here compared to the before picture. This piece is important to show support for the floor. Also, the pier panels, that's the pier panels over here, must line up to the porch columns above it. I also offer an ebook that goes into more detail on balustrade design and porch restoration, which is available for sale on my website. Window casings are very important. The size and the width, 4.5 inches wide is the best size for this. With a sill, you need a window sill. They're not putting window sills in anymore. And a drip cap at the top or crown. So when the water drips down the siding, it hits the drip cap or crown and goes away from the house instead of draining down the side like on new houses. On this house, I also added an apron right below the windowsill. But a windowsill is an important design you need to have along with something on the top for the water to drip off of. Okay, it looks like a real house now. So the windows are inserted. 6/1 windows and 1/1 windows were both used on houses like this in 1909. 6 meaning 6 lights at the top sash and 1 at the bottom, or 1 full light at the top and 1 at the bottom. Either one is appropriate. There is a ton of information you should know before purchasing windows regarding the design. Windows are the eyes of the house and are frequently done wrong, ruining the entire house. Never do anything with windows until you read my website. And please do not get plastic grids. That is extremely tacky. That awful infill addition on the right here weighted down the house. So to lighten it up, I added casement windows to create a feeling of separation from the main house. A simple gable treatment adds a period look to the house. Okay, here we have the before and after picture of the house. Notice the windows. Here is a double window here to match the double window below where we had a single before. An extra window was added here to provide more interior light. And this section over here we made into a sunroom so it could lighten up the weight of the house. Notice the balance and form of the house. It's not perfect, but it does appear more authentic. And here we have a before and after with the new colors the homeowner chose for their house. The house has historic colors. The window sash is a dark color to make it look recessed, like eyeliner in a woman's eyes. And historic house colors, not typical white and gray like you see on vinyl-sided houses. Here are some samples of some other historic paint colors. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I really encourage you to visit our website for a pretty thorough education. We also have a monthly newsletter you can subscribe to. Always remember, let the buyer beware. Please be careful of window salespeople and unqualified contractors for your historic home.